I mean, Muss's dad was a coaching lifer, and this guy's going to be a lifer too. But is it just me, or does it seem to me like he kind of wears out his welcome? He wears people out after a few years.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with us today on this Throwdown Thursday edition, our favorite administrator, Robert Abney. Robert, how are you, sir?
I am living the dream as always, sir. We are eagerly awaiting the arrival of granddaughter number 3 here in Central Texas, and she just does not want to come out. So hopefully by this time next week, I can say I've got granddaughter number 3.
That put a smile on my face. An academic and athletic consultant for the CKSA project, George Acker. George, been on the phone a lot this week. How are you, sir?
Hanging in here, man. That's what it is. Hanging in here.
Yes. So on this Throwdown Thursday edition, we're going to wrap up the men's college basketball season in segment 1. We're going to wrap up the women's college season in segment 2. And in segment 3, I am glad I have my educators here. The NCAA may have made some changes, possibly for the better. But first, UConn's dominance. UConn won the national championship as we predicted. We thought UConn was going to win, but it was how they won that got us. UConn won over Purdue 75-60. Dan Hurley has back-to-back national championships as a coach. His brother Bobby Hurley has back-to-back national championships as a player. His dad, Bob Hurley, was an all-time great. Dan Hurley, fellas, is in company with Billy Donovan, Coach K, John Wooden, and Adolph Rupp as now a back-to-back national champion. They're like the Harbaugh families, the Hurleys. George, what did you think about UConn's dominance?
Man, how tough their guards were. I mean, their guard play, it was at a whole nother level for me. The kids that Danny got in impressed me, and I'm talking about on both ends of the floor because they play grade D, real tough D, and the way they cover the perimeter, and then all of them can create. All of them can knock down open shots, and then they can make and create their own shot off for themselves. So, and the offense in the way they stuck to their offense and they ran their offense the entire time. So yeah, man, it was. That guard play was awesome because I think they went into he even said they went into the philosophy of, look, Edie's going to get his, but the rest of y'all aren't going to score, and that's what they did. They shut it down. So Castle, the freshman kid they got there, some tough kids, and there's one thing I picked up that he talked about. When they interviewed him, he said you get to see how talented our kids are and we prepare them for the next level. It's so interesting to hear college coaches now not talk about just college, but we're preparing them for the next level. Like, he knows that these guys aren't going to be, he's got them for a specific time. He's going to get them as ready as he possibly can for the next level. And he said, they get the NBA scouts come to our practices, so the kids get to show a lot of the stuff and skills that they have during the practice that they don't get to show during the games because we're running set plays. So it was interesting to hear how good a coach Danny Hurley has become. So that was eye-opening. But just the perimeter defense and offensive play they make was just outstanding.
Yeah, Robert, from a leadership standpoint, Danny Hurley kind of coaches, air quote, old school. What did you think about UConn's dominance and how he runs his team?
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree with George. I mean, they just, Purdue couldn't do anything offensively or defensively. I mean, Purdue couldn't get a stop. They could not get a stop. Not just when they needed one. They could. UConn got what they wanted the entire game. Danny Hurley runs some of the best sets I think I've seen. He runs some really nice sets for his guys that play to the strengths of his guys. Clearly they like playing for him. Clearly. I mean, and I've seen some of the other stuff he does. He talks about the type of kid he recruits. He talks about what he looks for in recruiting kids. And I mean, Tristan Newton, that kid that he had, he's from El Paso, I think. The kid was he was not recruited by any Power 5 schools coming out of high school. I think he went to East Carolina, was it? He was somewhere else for a few years before he wound up at UConn. And I mean, just, and he hit shots and he defended the perimeter. And I mean, just a really, really solid team. I want to throw something else in though, and I have to, because Danny Hurley is a really, really good coach. He's an absolute stark, raving lunatic on the sidelines. And that's problematic for a lot of reasons, because and his brother is too. I mean, they do stupid stuff on the sidelines, and officials have to decide whether they want to address it or not. Like, for example, it was late in the game. So it was at a point in the game when it didn't matter. Danny Hurley is trying to get his guy to run something, and he steps onto the floor right in front of an official and pushes him. So he runs the play. And what the official chose to do, which, okay, I guess, is he called him out of bounds because Danny Hurley had a foot out of bounds, I guess, was his argument, and gave the ball to Purdue. That's a technical foul. He's out of the coaching box. He's out of the coaching box all the time. And he came out and started, woofing. He came all the way out onto the court at a TV timeout, screaming at an official. There's a bench area on dead balls where the benches are supposed to be. He's outside that area screaming at an official. He comes out and does the same thing with Zach Edey. He starts woofing at a kid. And my issue with that is this, those are big time guys calling that game. It's a big time game. I'm not going to second guess officials and how they're managing their games. But what I will say is this: when people watch that, then we get that kind of stuff in high school games. Then we get that kind of stuff in 7th grade games. And that stuff does not belong in the game. It doesn't belong in the game at any level. And at some point, we, the collective, we have to address that, because that kind of stuff makes our game non-sustainable. Because at some point, and we've talked about this before, you get people saying, I'm not going to go out there and run up and down with with these kids for $25 a game so people can come act like Boo Boo the Fool and scream and cuss at me. It's not going to happen. And you guys know, if you don't have referees, it's just practice. That's all it is. So he's a great coach. I would like him a lot more if he quit doing that stuff.
Love it. Love it. And with that, we're going to move to old coaches in new places. And I'm going to stay with Robert first. Robert, Arkansas has a new coach. John Calipari is now the new coach at Arkansas, although he's lost a few games at Kentucky and so forth. Hey, man, if you're Arkansas, how are you feeling about John Calipari being your new coach?
I mean, his record speaks for itself. He gets to the NCAA tournament. He's won an NCAA tournament. Has he done that recently? No. He's got a lot of NIL money. So there's that. You know how this whole thing started, right? This whole thing started when your boy Rob Lanier got fired at SMU.
Chain of events.
Chain of events, because he leaves, Andy Enfield goes to USC, Eric Musselman from Arkansas goes to USC. I think that's kind of interesting because I mean, Muss's dad was a coaching lifer, and this guy's going to be a lifer too. But is it just me, or does it seem to me like he kind of wears out his welcome? He wears people out after a few years.
We'll let the resume prove that. That's what the resume proves.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, Cal's a good hire for Arkansas. I mean, they found the money to hire him. They've got NIL money. Let's see what happens.
All right, George, you're Kentucky. Everybody said no to you. Mark Pope is taking your money. Mark Pope comes from BYU, had a nice little run there. He's also an alum of Kentucky, won a national championship. How excited are you, if you're Kentucky, about Mark Pope?
I don't know if I'm all that excited. I mean, that excitement of former Kentucky player and all that kind of stuff. But Kentucky was not content with success. And, they got built on this whole, we need to win a national championship, but they wanted to turn a blind eye to all the money and having the top 25 class coming every year. You got to realize what Calipari was doing was one of the hardest things to do, because he was basically taking every year walking in with a brand new freshman or sophomore class, making them a top 25 team, and then turn around and recycling again the next year, because he was preparing kids for the league. And and I think the Kentucky fans got stuck in that nostalgia of the old days with Joe B. Hall and Sutton and them, where we're going to win a national championship and this, that, and the other. But we've already we see it again and again. It's extremely hard to take a bunch of freshmen and maybe sophomores. You got a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds and win a national championship. Now in this environment in college, when they're playing against 21 to 23-year-olds that have been to like 3 different colleges all over. Cal's focus was, I'm going to take my kids, and these kids are loyal as hell to Cal. If you've ever seen interviews with like John Wall and all the old Kentucky dudes, they're like, man, Cal's the man, because Cal took them, basically helped them get from the mud to the penthouse. He's helping kids pull up by the bootstraps. How many interviews you sat and seen where kids are like, Cal was like, oh no, you're not staying next year. You're getting the hell out of here and going to the league. So Kentucky's point of view about, I think that the old faithful of good old blue was stuck in the nostalgia point of view. And, and it didn't mesh. I think Cal's gone, Arkansas has done the best thing in the world for them in their program. Musselman's funny. That Musselman, he does a great job where he is, but he doesn't last for so long. So somebody he's rubbing the wrong way. And Arkansas, who's always been they've been a good program, but they're about to get a hell of a lot better right now, because Cal's going to bring in kids. He's going to have them as a top 25 team. Again, it's rinse rewash with what he was doing in Kentucky, and he'll be able to do it at Arkansas and be able to do it for a long time, because they're not going to be sweating him about, we need to win a national championship. They're going to be fine with having a top 25 program every year. That arena will be packed, money will be flowing in, and everybody's going to leave them alone and let them go with it. So I think it's going, I thought that Duke might start finding or have a problem there sooner or later, but because they were the only other school that jumped on that one and done bus a whole lot like Cal did, like Kentucky did. But Coach K won a national championship out of it, and now Shire is doing pretty much the same thing and recruiting the best kids in the country. So we're going to see how that shows out also. So,
all right, and shout out to Nolan Richardson. I cannot forget Arkansas, some national champion Scotty Thurman. Yeah. But again, if Scotty Thurman doesn't hit that shot, I think Duke wins 3.
Yeah.
But when we get back,
I'm still mad about that, by the way. We're gonna leave that alone. But go ahead.
We're gonna wrap up the women's season. We'll be right back on the iCoaches Podcast.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Folarin Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 2. As we wrap up the women's season, we are transitioning Stanford women's basketball legend and the winningest coach in Division I college basketball, Tara VanDerveer, has announced her retirement. Now, I don't care what she says because she deserves whatever she wants, but Stanford going to the ACC, I think expedited this manner. So she's won over 1,200 games, outstanding clinician, absolute legend. But Robert, does that move really, have that impact, or was she ready to go? What do you think, sir?
Well, she was ready to go. I mean, you do something for 39 years, you get to a point where you I think you have to reassess every year. Is this something I really want to keep doing? And Stanford going to that is, I mean, we've talked about that. We've beaten this dead horse multiple times. Just a horrible move for the university as a whole, that Stanford to the ACC. That's terrible. And she just decided she didn't want to travel anymore. And, Stanford women are still relevant because NIL hasn't affected the women's game quite the way as it has the men's game. So, I mean, she just finished. She had a really good team. That was a Final Four capable team. It just wound up that they got beat. But she didn't want, I think she decided, kind of like Nick Saban did, she's like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't have anything else to prove. There's no reason for me to continue. And so she decided she's out. And, the new coach is one of her assistants, which is fine. I feel like Stanford is probably going to fade into oblivion a little bit because they have NIL issues that other schools do not have. You have to academically get into Stanford. And I think Stanford is one of those places that is not going to be as willing to bend their academic requirements as other universities will be.
All right, and that's a perfect segue. George, I'm giving you Tennessee. The Lady Vols have not been to the Final Four since 2008. Since Pat Summitt's death, they have always had a Pat Summitt player or disciple or something coaching. And now they have hired Kim Caldwell as their next women's basketball coach. She just took the position from Kelly Harper, who many folks didn't think should have been fired. Caldwell comes from Marshall. She has only been a head coach, like a Division I head coach, like one season, did a great job in Division II. George, how are you feeling about Tennessee moving away from Pat Summitt's tree, if you will, and totally striking out on their own as the SEC expands with Texas and Oklahoma coming in? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Something else was going on. Remember how we sat here and talked about something else is happening with the Philadelphia Eagles. Something else is afoot right now because Tennessee went in. What they lose? The Elite Eight, Sweet 16. They were right there. I mean, and they hadn't been there in a minute. Because they had been down for a while, and she brought them back. So something else was happening. So right now, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm confused. Is Tennessee going to get back to the mountaintop where they are? I don't know, and it doesn't. SEC, with as long as that monster of South Carolina sitting down there, I don't know if we're going to see a Tennessee of old. I mean, can they compete? Yes, but they might still be stuck in the same boat as the Duke or UNC or whatever, where they're going to be a really good team, but there's going to be monsters out there that they just can't get over. And I put the Tennessee fans, the Tennessee women's basketball fans, right up there with Kentucky men's basketball fans. Like, we're supposed to win in that. It's not good enough for us to have a top 25 program every year. We're supposed to win national championships every year. And it's a different day and it's different time. It's not going to be like that. I mean, Pat Summitt was doing these things like it was almost like Gino Auriemma came in and took the baton from Pat Summitt that we're going to have the dominant program and ever the best players in the country are going to go here. And that's basically what happened. And now with so many good players, with so many good programs throughout the country, it's not going to be that way anymore. The Tennessee fans going to have to learn to realize that right now. So if I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm confused. I'm like, what the hell else do you want? What do you want right now? We can't beat we can't overcome South Carolina. We can't compete with LSU right now. So what do you want us to do? Kentucky just got
Virginia Tech's coach.
Yeah,
they're gonna be okay.
Yeah,
and Texas is not bad.
No, Texas ain't bad either. So we're in a Shark Tank right now, and you're acting like this is still the Guppy Pond that we used to rule, and it's not anymore. So, and I think a lot of this, and this is probably one of those times where that NIL money is driving decisions, because most of that NLI money is coming from that alumni base and the people that have been supporting underneath. It's interesting. NIL's opened up to all those elements you never wanted associated with your program. You wanted them associated undercover. Now they're coming to the forefront and they're making a lot, and they're pushing decisions. So, I don't know. We'll see what we get. It'll probably be a mess next year until they get it figured out. So,
all right. And now, fans, when we get back in segment 3, the NCAA may be putting the student back in student athlete with some of their decisions. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast.
Why should student athletes use the CKA SAVE Project academic and athletic consulting services? Over the past 15 to 20 years, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, business organizations, and others have increased their use of consulting services to improve their decision-making processes and results. Over the same time, the athletic and academic landscape has changed for high school and college student athletes as the NCAA has raised initial academic eligibility requirements for student athletes while decreasing the number of transfer restrictions. Former college student athletes have noted that they were academic and athletically unprepared for the rigors of college. Let the CKA SAVE Project's close to 30 years of academic and athletic experience help guide student athletes to increase success as we work to help student athletes achieve the goal of obtaining a college degree. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast, and in segment 3, putting the student back in student athlete. The NCAA Division I Council could adopt emergency legislation this month for a new transfer rule that would allow all undergraduate athletes to transfer and play immediately if they meet specific academic requirements. The proposed legislation would not limit the number of times an athlete can transfer. Athletes would still have 2 transfer windows and wouldn't be able to transfer mid-year and play for a second school in the same season. So, fans, here's the old rules. Before the NCAA one-time transfer rule let athletes play immediately at the first school they transferred to, but they had to sit out a year if they transfer again or apply for a special waiver. In January, the U.S. Department of Justice joined a lawsuit. We don't want lawsuits, by the way, against the NCAA transfer rules, arguing that any limitations on transfers violate antitrust laws. Some additional information. In December, the NCAA proposed this policy in reaction to a West Virginia judge that intended to stop the organization from enforcing its bylaws barring athletes from transferring multiple times and playing right away. The NCAA agreed on terms of a preliminary injunction that runs through the end of the academic year. So with that, this amended complaint, the NCAA transfer bylaw unjustifiably restrains the ability of college student athletes to engage in the market for transferring. By adding an academic component, it may supersede these items. The next meeting is scheduled for this coming week, and we will be waiting for any and all commentary from that. Robert, we've covered this since the beginning of the show and said, why aren't you being academic people? That kind of shuts everything up. What are your thoughts as we get ready for the Division I Council's meeting this week?
How hard was that? How hard was that? If someone is academically eligible, if they're meeting degree
Measurable
progress towards a degree, why do we care? We don't regulate other students. If the NCAA had done that a long time ago, they would have saved themselves a lot of trouble and a lot of money paying for a lot of lawyers trying to litigate this nonsense. And yet here we are.
George, you're my athletic director. Tell me, man, as Robert said, what took you so long to say, you know what? Let's make academics important. And now we can kind of regulate movement because fans, I'm not giving away trade secrets. Second semester starts at the end of January. So students take first semester exams in December. So if you're a basketball player from December to about the end of January, as long as you're not taking a J term, who's taking a J term? That's a January term. You're pretty much a pro. So then you register for second semester classes, and then you don't have to go because by the end of the season, you're declaring or moving or whatever, and that's how the world works in some places. So George, tell me, man, what are you thinking about this upcoming meeting and the potential change?
It's too little, too late. It is. I mean, because you wanted to put the facade on about student athlete with the amount of money. Let's just be honest. The money runs this whole situation. All right. And there's no way you're going to tell. And I know, and I love Nick Saban. I mean, I thought he was a great coach, but even he knows there's no way you're going to tell the big time recruit, this big time football player. Let's just take football because we know that's going to drive everything. That he's coming in to LSU. He's going to transfer. You're not, and maybe his grades aren't quite where they need to be. You're going to tell them, oh, he can't play. NCAA lost control a long time ago. And now it's time. Now we're talking about trying to get it back. And I don't see it happening. They can vote whatever they want to. I guarantee you, if it goes up and they say, oh, it's a, they got to have a certain grade point average. Let there be one issue and they'll be back in court. And
we don't want to be in court.
If they're back in court, it'll disappear. The genie got out the bottle. This is their little thing of trying to put the genie back in. They have no control whatsoever. So
George, do you think that if they had gone to something like this before all of this started, that it would have nipped all this in the bud, we wouldn't be at this place?
yeah, it would have given them a whole different stance to stand on at that point in time. Because at that point, and I do agree with you with that, they could have stood on that leg of being student athlete at that point in time and been like, look, let them go. They have the freedom, but they got to have a grade point average because this is still
measurable
school.
progress.
Yes, this is still college, and we're still quote unquote preparing them to be citizens. The main thing here is to get quote unquote a degree. But as soon as they wanted to police everything, that the NCAA got so damn greedy that as soon as they started wanting to police everything and keep the money to themselves and all that, and they got hit over the head, there's no way to recover this. They're not, like I said, they're never putting this genie back in the bottle. I don't see the NCAA as an entity itself is in trouble for existing. And we've all sat here every week. We talk about some new movement, whether it's, and we'll see it. And I know Keith don't believe it, but slowly we'll see it affecting all other sports, because now it has been proven you can make money off of all the other sports. And with the creation of the basketball tournament in Vegas and a couple other ones, it's going to be a slow dying death right now. For
gymnastics is on TV and they love it. Volleyball. Go ahead, Robert.
Let me tell you something else. So I happen to know some folks in Indianapolis, which is where the NCAA is headquartered. Mm. They have a beautiful building in downtown where they administer all of these things, in which the NCAA is now renting out office space because, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I mean, too little, too late, I fear.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm gonna tell you, there are more Miamis out there, and I use Miami because Miami. We all know Miami is that rogue program. It always is, that will go against and like they did this time, like
the whole Catholics versus convicts thing back in the 90s.
Yep. Miami, there are more Miamis out there than we know about, that will go against the green and say, hey, what do we need to do? Let's go try something different. And it'll catch fire. They'll make money. The deal will be better than what they're getting from the NCAA. And then as they start trickling and going, I mean, let's look at it. If they decide to think football, we decide that who cares about the NCAA? We're going to CFP. We're going to create a super conference. Who's going to stop the LSUs of the world to say, hell, let's do this with baseball? You watch how much money the NCAA the tournament makes this year, and in the College World Series. And the thing about it is, when they do it, they'll go ahead and have the World Series or whatever they want to call it at that point in time. They'll have it in their traditional locations. Like they'll be back in Omaha playing it and won't give a damn about the NCAA. Just go ahead and keep doing it.
Well, and I don't know if you guys are baseball fans, but they do like a baseball, May Madness, if you want to call it that. That first weekend of the NCAA baseball tournament, you can watch on
ESPN.
You can watch 4 screens of college baseball, and some of that stuff is just absolutely bananas. It's a lot of fun.
And I'll tell you, that's the one sport I think that they didn't really take into account, that they were going to have the call from the public that they did that home. And let me tell you, I am a ESPN home plate advocate. I'll sit here in May, June, and every night and Keith knows, every night I'll put it on and watch everyone. I mean, because Robert, you and I have talked about how good Dallas Baptist is. I love seeing all these old smaller schools.
Yep.
They will make a killing off the NCAA tournament. And they have. And that money that ESPN pays, do you really think the NCAA is going to have any say over that? That's a multi-million-dollar maker right there. So, like I said, there's a University of Miami out there that's already got the black flag up with the skull and crossbones ready to go to work and get rid of them all together, dude. So, hey.
All right. So to close, special shout out to Syracuse University men's basketball. You're one of my new favorite teams. You were already one of my favorites because Brendan Strawn is one of the assistants there. But this past week, Dan Engelstad, formerly head coach of Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland, has decided to take a job there as an assistant. I covered Dan when he was in high school. Our teams played some really good games between Springbrook and Whitman. There's a picture out there of me and Dan at the end of his game. Dan went on to play college locally in the Maryland area and went on to a lovely, great coaching career in Division III, moving to Division I as an assistant, then moving to the Mount, made it to the NCAA tournament. So Dan, Brendan, Red, everybody at Syracuse, man, good luck next year. And on behalf of our Cavalcade of Stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast. We'll see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach FRANCHIZE. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches podcast.